Today we're going to be building a farm table base using scrap metal. I've been doing a lot of metal work recently, and one of my favorite parts about it, other than the welding itself, is the scraps and the drops that I get. So this video is kind of just a little inspirational piece on what you could do with some metal drops if you're looking to get into welding, or you already are and you want a very simple project. So with some expert calculation and some architectural renderings, I've discovered that for the tabletop I'm using, I'd like a 1/2 inch overhang on the sides and 1 inch on the ends. Rust in patina will happen when you hoard scrap materials like I do. Best method I've found is using a sander with dust extraction in terms of my general health. There are faster ways to do it, but this is the one I like. For me, without having a stationary metal bandsaw, I love using this Makita saw, but I go ahead and cut all the components from my table very first thing. So when I start my project, I have my cut list and I just dive straight in to cutting all my material so I can lay it out, clean it up, sand down the edges where the metal connects so my weld will pool a little better. The next step is I assemble 2 sets of legs, and they're the shortest sides, so then I can connect the 2 sets with my longest apron. I actually just hold a speed square into the corner and manipulate it until it is perfectly plumb and level, and then I tack it up on 3 to 4 sides of the joint and then fill weld after everything is tacked. After that, go in, make sure everything's good, and you have a basic table base. At which point, once it sits properly and you're happy with your size, go ahead and weld on 1/8 inch by 3 inch scraps of flat bar for your attachment tabs. Now, if there's a point in this job that a fluke injury could happen, it's usually right here. If that drill bit bites, it's gonna take your wrist for a ride. So just be careful and mindful of that. The other thing that I really recommend doing here is oversizing your hole so that the wood can breathe, expand and contract throughout the seasons and not pop the screws out, because that will happen. I've seen it happen, and I've had it happen on my own projects. Next, just dry fit your tabletop to make sure it fits the base and that you're happy with everything. And then go ahead and start attaching. Pre-drill and send a screw with a washer straight down in. Make sure that your screws are not going to poke through the top, because that would be an incredible bummer. Don't over tighten, just let it get nice and snug. I throw in some 3/8 16 metric adjustable feet. I don't know if 3/8 16 is metric, but I throw in adjustable feet. They're 3/8 16 thread count. And then moving this big table, the reason I put this clip in here is just to emphasize how quickly things can escalate in a shop when you're working by yourself. I forgot to lock the casters on my workbench. And the one thing I love about my workbenches is that they're small, but they can connect together, so I can break them down and make a lot of room in my shop while also creating a large footprint to work on. However, when you move them around a lot, you can forget to lock casters. Please be mindful, as this could have ended so poorly. I did end up scratching the tabletop, which you can kind of see on the left-hand side there. But alas, it is a rustic farm industrial table, so do I really care? No, I clear-coated steel after degreasing it. Used rattle can Rust-Oleum matte, so steel has scratches, so does the wood, not a big deal. There you have it, a very simple, very effective, very easy way to build a farm table base, or even better, a workbench, a very simple workbench or shop space. Maybe it's a poker table. It's a very rudimentary build, but it's a great exercise to practice welding. Getting things square when you do have, 40 by 40 plus sizing, making sure that those legs are square to each other and not racked. It's a great exercise just to practice your patience and your execution in metalworking. Just to run through again, when I have enough hoard of scrap stock and I make sure I can cover my cut list, first thing I'm gonna do even before cutting is clean my metal. I really don't want dust particulate in my shop. Even if I'm wearing a mask, I don't want it in the air. I don't want it landing on other tools. I don't want it, spreading, so that even if I drop a sheet good, blows up all this powder. Don't want dust lung by the time I'm 50. Probably already gonna get it, but I try to do my best. I always have with wearing a mask. Sometimes it's unavoidable, but rust dust particularly is pretty bad for you. So wear a mask, I use a sander with dust extraction. You can use chemicals or you could take it to sandblasting. That's probably the best bet if you really wanted to, but this metal wasn't that rusted, so a sander was completely sufficient. Next, I went through and made my cut list. It's the vibration of that saw blade that can knock a lot of that dust off, by the way, which is why I clean it first. Cut list. Then, when I get my cut on the edge, I actually sand the edge of my cuts with a grinder and a sanding pad, so that when the metal connects, there's that little bit of extra kind of V-groove ridge from where you sanded that edge. And that allows my weld to pool a little deeper. And I just find it's a lot cleaner. It also removes the burrs of the metal from the cut. When you're getting them plumb and level, the legs to the aprons, I tack at 4 different points because that tack can pull a leg in or out of plumb or level. And especially when you're working with such a wide stance table, you really don't want things to look racked. I know I'm doing a lot of hand talking right now. I'm just trying to point out that take your time with it in fitting and tack on 4 points of your weld so that it will stay true. Once you have that set in, you can start to fill weld, which will heat up the metal, which is why it's important to have opposing sided tacks, because as it heats up as you fill weld, it will warp that metal if it's not sufficiently tacked. Once I do that, I add my tabs, 1/8 inch flat bar by 1 inch. It could be 3/4 inch by 1/8. Really, honestly, it could be any flat bar you have, so long as when you weld it, you drill it, and when you drill it, you oversize your hole so the screw has room to let the table breathe as it expands and contracts over time. It will happen. If you don't oversize your hole, at some point in time in your career, a screw will actually shoot out of the bottom of the table and your tabletop will pop. So that's pretty much it for the basic build. And then when you have to lift, try and team lift because it sucks moving big objects by yourself. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments. You know, this is a very basic build, not even so much a DIY, more of an inspiration video. If you have scrap steel when I practice welding, it's a great way to sling together something for your kitchen, your dining room, or heck, go sell it online and make a couple extra $100. Again, if you have any questions about any of the tooling I'm using, let me know in the comments. I'm happy to let you know in the links below and answer any questions. And if you really like what you're seeing, consider giving us a thumbs up and subscribing. It would really help this channel out as we continue to grow. All right, until the next video, y'all take care.